have a thing here. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Awesome. Okay. Wonderful. This is the last session of the day, so congratulations for sticking with us. As I have watched each of the sessions throughout the day, I've grown, as usual, more and more panicked, thinking, I don't know anything at all. Is anyone else with me? Does anyone else feel out of their depth? Just the one at the back there. What I want to reassure you, though, at this point of the day is this one is the session that is going to take you into the weekend. I'm going to take it down a little bit. We're going to move from that friction into the flow. I'm not going to stretch your brain cells too much. I'm just going to talk about how the world has changed and how that's okay, because AI is going to help you with that. As opposed to take your job and kick you out in the cold. This is me and my little dog, Coda, who helps me with all of my coding. Well, he helped me before the AI tried to take his job. Now he mostly snoozes at my feet while the AI tries to do a lot of the work. I do have like a little blog site that I did make with the help of AI, and from there you can connect to me on all of my socials, because it has a little connect to me page where you can join me on all of those things. And I would say, do not just follow me on LinkedIn if you're going to connect there. Click on the 3 dots and connect, because now that we have spent this day together, we are, after all, besties. Not as bestie as me and George, but pretty close. Cool, okay. So I want to start with rule 0. You own the code. I think a few people have stressed this throughout the day, but no matter how agentic we get, no matter how many agents there are, rule 0 is that you own the code. If you're working for one of those big companies that have been getting overexcited and pushing stuff to production without oversight, then you would know that when you push that stuff to production and it all goes horribly wrong, they want to know who is the person responsible. If you're using GitHub, it's stamping your name right there next to the agent that you used to push that code. And so you need to keep that in the front of your mind. This is the thing that's going to keep you in your jobs, staying awake whilst the agents help you go faster and be more productive and do more. You have to pay attention. This is the difference between you and those kids that Elon Musk employed off the street. Because yes, he thought you could absolutely just take a couple of kids who don't know anything, have no subject matter expertise, and let them run the government. Time has told that that does not work. You don't want to be like those kids. You don't want to be like the people that those kids replaced. You want to be the person that is fully awake, that is staying there, and when you approve code, when you push it to production, and you stamp your name next to your Copilot, you're proud of the code that's going in there, and you are sure that it is safe, it is well governed, it is secure, it is private, it is compliant. So yes, stay awake is top tip number 1. So the daily friction of modern engineering. Let's be honest, it's not about the big architecture decisions. That's the fun part. That's the part that actually we are bringing our own expertise to. What is not fun is the grind all around it. So this is the boilerplate, this is the writing tests from scratch, debugging silly mistakes. I still remember spending an entire day not being able to debug my code, then going to Graham Foster and saying, Graham, I can't see what's wrong here, can you help me? Watching him do exactly the same troubleshooting steps as I did, because Graham is the same age as me, and so we learnt in the same era. We went to university, we studied the same books, we learnt the same troubleshooting techniques, and where I couldn't see a problem in my code, neither could he. Little Gia, though, Gia was my grad hire at the time, and I said, Gia, can you see the problem in my code? And she said, why would you ask me? Why don't you ask the senior dev? Ask Graham. And I said, Graham is as old as me. We cannot see it. We are peering at it, and we cannot see it. And she looked at it and said, Michelle, there is a capital letter in your code path. It is partly because I was old, but it is also that, you know, for those of you that are early in career, those of you that are junior devs, you come to an organization with a different perspective. You can see things from a different point of view. You are not blocked, you are not seeing things as Graham and I saw them from the same light, from the same viewpoint. So if you are an early in career person, don't be panicking either and thinking there is nothing for me here. There absolutely is. Bring who you are, bring your individual viewpoints to the table, and that will always be worth stuff. Now, of course, I can ask the agent to look at it for me, and it is giving me a different perspective as well, but you can't always trust it either. So you need to stay awake, as I've said. Anyway, what it is helping us with is getting rid of that friction, getting rid and bringing us into flow. It's enabling us to, it will write the boilerplate, it will write those tests from scratch, it will debug those silly mistakes for us, it will search docs, it will rewrite something that you wrote 6 months ago that you thought was genius back then, and now you realize it's garbage. So that is the tax on productivity that we were all paying, and now GitHub Copilot, or indeed, you know, choose your own assistant if you prefer. This one's obviously the best one, but you know. Yes, so Copilot will start shaving off that productivity task. Not perfectly, but meaningfully. So, initially when all of those AI assistants came in, everyone just thought it was all about faster coding. I remember talking to a friend of mine who's at BHP. Anyone from BHP in the room? Just this one guy. But actually there are more than 20 of you registered, so there should be plenty of your friends here. Yeah, so my friend at BHP, he's a very senior dev who's been coding for more than 30 years. He's not super old, I don't think, unless you're like a Gen Alpha, then you would assume he is super old. He said to me, yeah, I've been using it, it's great. I use it to code the code I was going to do anyway, but faster. And like I was blown away, that was amazing. I really like it, it's making me more productive, and I can, you know, just do what I was going to do, but do more. And he said, but the other day I was coding something and it put in a block of code for me. And I said, no, that's not what I want. I want it like this. And it said, I'm sorry, I can't let you do that. It was very 2001 Space Odyssey. And he was like, what do you mean? This is how I want it to be. This is how we're going to go. And it said, I can't let you do that because what you want to do is going to introduce a vulnerability into your code. What you are going to do is no longer secure. And then it brought the receipts right into it. You know, here's why, here's all the things that have changed. So he didn't need to leave his coding window. He could just read all of that stuff right there. And he said this was a game changer for him because it had not occurred to him that it was going to be teaching him a senior dev stuff. He thought it was for teaching junior devs stuff. But in fact, he acknowledged that he doesn't have time to keep up to date with all of the things that are changing, all of the security patches that are coming down, everything that's happening. He can't stay on top of that. And bringing that directly where he was without him having to switch context was a huge advantage for him. So yes, it's more than faster coding. If you are one of those people that is still using it that way, that's good for your tokens. Actually, if you're using GitHub Copilot, coding faster, but what you were going to code anyway doesn't cost you any tokens. That's just your license fee. So in fact, that is free coding. However, when you get agentic, and then it costs you more. But that's okay, because a lot of people have told you today how to do that effectively so you're not token maxing, which is also key. Any product owners, product managers in the room? A few? Cool. So this is the other thing that I love now, in that these agentic agents are not just for developers. So this is one of my favorite little demos where it's just showing, I mean, how many developers have ever seen the bottom of their backlog? And anyone seen it? This is cool, because what's happening here is there's a lot of stuff at the bottom of the backlog that is absolutely low priority and is very, very easy to fix, but developers do not have time to do that. And so what we are doing here is product owners or product managers can in fact assign those low priority tasks to a coding agent, have the coding agent solve the task. How it can do it is it can create like a full to-do list, then it can assign each of the things in the to-do list to an issue, then it can assign each of those issues to a coding agent, then they can resolve that issue, and then it can create the pull request, and then the developer or senior architect or whatever reviews the pull request to check that what is being merged into production is good. And that is the name stamp that's going on there. Someone with authority and with knowledge has said, yes, this is good to go into production. And that person needs to be staying awake. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff at the bottom of the backlog that is nothing, that is really insignificant, and it could easily be resolved by a coding agent. And so why not let them go? And you see in this demo, it can assign them all simultaneously. You don't even have to wait and do them one at a time, which I think is also super, super cool. So for me, flow is when things click. I'm not just jumping between tools and tabs and context. I'm focused on the outcome, not just the mechanics, but with Copilot, I can stay in that flow state for longer. So I can ask questions, I can generate code, I can validate approaches, all without breaking my concentration. I, in fact, use GitHub Copilot for everything. So for helping me write the posts for this conference, for asking day-to-day questions. It doesn't have to be code-related anymore. I don't know whether anyone remembers, but when it first came out, it would only answer questions about code. That is no longer the case now. You can ask it about anything, and I ask it about my entire life because I consider it my most trusted Copilot. Because you can trust a technical Copilot, right? Phil does not. Yes, but the biggest shift isn't technical, it is how I work. I don't have to start with blank files anymore. This was like a big issue for me. I don't know who has analysis paralysis like I do, or who would, you know, when you would get a task and you just have the blank page, you're just unable to do anything until the last minute. Is that just me, or is that like an ADHD thing? Yes, so that was a big problem for me. And now what I really like is I can ask it stuff and it will fill in stuff and it will get me started, and I can see immediately that's not what I like. That's not what I want to do. Let's talk about that some more. So I love plan mode because there we can plan stuff out together, we can iterate on it, we can exchange ideas. I can ask it to poke holes in what I've assumed. And this is good for me because previously I wouldn't do this with colleagues because I was embarrassed and I didn't want to look like I was stupid. I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was talking about. So I would hate to go to colleagues to ask them things. But I'm not embarrassed with Copilot because it's my secret friend and it's never going to tell anyone what I said. So yes, I describe what I want, I refine it, I guide it, and the workflow moves from write everything to fix everything, from orchestrate to review to refine. So it's like a completely different way of working. I did put a little link on there for SpecKit, which if any of you have, who's tried SpecKit? practical. I don't think that you just have to use it with GitHub Copilot. I think you can adapt that and use that with any agent, right? Phil says yes. Because it's basically a templatized way of you making sure that your organization's standards flow through all of the repositories that you go with without you having to pass that knowledge on manually each time. It will just step your people through and make sure they fill in all the information in the correct way. And so it's a really good way. And there's a lot of stuff that is out there now to help you so that you don't have to start from scratch. You can start from templates, you can start from things. So, this link that I have at the top, do you see that from Friction to Flow one? This is actually these slides and my notes on a website, so you don't have to ask me for the slides afterwards. You can literally look them up there. There is a resources page on there, and on that resources page, I've put GitHub that Arnaud was just talking about before this. I've put the spec kit. I've also put the Awesome Copilot directory. Has anyone seen Awesome Copilot? Not as many of you as they should have. So Awesome Copilot, again, you don't have to just use it with Copilot. It is a bunch of templates. So it's got all of the skills, it's got all of the hooks, it's got all of the APIs, it's got all of the agent instructions, it's got all sorts of stuff that you can just take the best practice that the community has committed, and you can use that as is, or you can add to it and adapt it. So I'll often take like the accessibility instructions just as my base instructions for stuff, because I think everything should have accessibility built through. And then I just add like a few extra lines in there to say, follow these instructions, set it up like this. So anyway, yes, key is start with intent, don't start with blank files. So this is as kind of a day in the life slide. So I'm constantly talking to Copilot throughout my day now. I'm moving from planning tasks to breaking down problems to asking for options to generating scaffolding to test to documentation, and then just like stepping in where it matters. It is super important that you don't sleep on your chair, and I keep saying this, but for example, I'm really focused on GitHub Copilot in my role, and often people from within the business will ping me a question about GitHub Copilot, often about licensing, which I don't care about the money, so I never know about licensing. And I will ask, so I immediately ask GitHub Copilot to tell me the answer. But the thing is, AI, just like humans, is pretty lazy given the opportunity. And so if you don't keep on your toes, it will give you an answer from its model training, which might be 2 years old. So what you need to do is when you put your prompt in, you need to say, I need to know an answer to this question about licensing as of June 2026, thus forcing it to go to the internet or to the current docs and come back with the accurate information to date, as opposed to just taking what it knew was accurate 2 years ago. So, you know, you stay awake because you can't trust the AI not to. I mean, when I was at AI Tour a month or so ago, maybe it's 2 months now, actually, I saw one of my colleagues on the floor, and he said, oh, Michelle, these are dark times in big tech. He said, I think that all of these companies that have about 5 developers in them, what's going to happen in those small businesses is their boss is going to look at it and say, let's get rid of 3 of those developers and keep the 2 that are good at speaking to the business, and then just augment them with AI. And I was a little bit shocked, because that wasn't what I was thinking at all. In my view, those companies that keep doing what they were doing yesterday, but just faster and cheaper, will not be here in 2 years' time. I think what you need to be doing with your 5 developers is acknowledging the fact that those 5 developers can now do all the projects that you've had in your backlog. And previously, they didn't have time to do them. But if you will invest in those developers and give them each access to a fleet of agents, then they will be able to do so much more. You would be able to do all the projects that you always dreamed of doing, but you didn't have the resources to do. Didn't have the money, didn't have the people, didn't have the time. Give your developers the tokens, let them deploy agentically, and then they will be able to take your business from where it is now to, exponential heights, I guess. If you just go for cheaper, like that race to the bottom, no one ever wins that. Okay, so I'm not just coding faster, I'm operating at a different level, I guess, is my messaging for this slide. I can take on more work, I can explore more ideas, I can deliver more value. Actually, that's another. I do love telling stories, you might have noticed. Where I said, it's on here and you can't see it, but normally on each of the slides you can see that friction to flow website. What I used to do when I would speak at developer conferences is people would ask me for the slide deck after the talk, and I would give them, I would either send that out, or the conference would send that out, or I would have shared that conference deck on like SlideShare or something. But essentially it was a PDF. It wasn't what you've got here, which is a website which has not just the slides, but also what I've said about the slides under each thing. So here you have a much better value proposition. It was AI that suggested that to me. It said, why are you sending out a PDF? Why don't we build a website? And in the past, the answer to that would have previously been because a website would take me between a month and several months to build. I'm not a great front-end web developer. My design is awful. It would have taken me ages to do that. It's just not worth it. Whereas now, I put my slide images into my GitHub, and I literally just say to it from there, I might say here's the content that we've done from a plan. So then we do that, and I say build the website, and it builds the website within half an hour. Now, 2 minutes to share a deck via PDF. That's a very short time. Half an hour for it to build it, that's a longer time. It does take longer than the half hour because you have to stay awake and check its work. So for example, when I was in Newcastle for /new a month or so ago, it had done this for me. It's created the website, and I went through checking it, and I said, hey, chapter 7, so slide 7, it's got 3 use cases on the website. There are no use cases on my slide. There is no use cases in the content that accompanies that slide. Where have these use cases come from? And it said, I made them up. It said, I thought your story would be much more compelling with these case studies. And I said, but they're not true case studies. And it said, no. And I said, did you make anything else up, just out of interest? And it said, yeah, I added some statistics. I thought that would make it more compelling. And I said, are the statistics true? And it said, no. So AI does want to be really, really helpful. And I can see, how it's trying to help me. However, if I had not been awake, if I had not been paying attention, then that's my name all over that website. That's me that's getting in trouble for making stuff up. So you have to pay attention, you have to double check it, and you have to make sure that you are confident that what you are producing together is good. So with some, working back and forth together, it took me maybe a day. I mean, not a full day. I was sitting in conferences, like adapting it with my coding agents whilst I did other stuff. But a day, say. Now, compared to the 2 minutes it used to take me to share a PDF, that is significant extra work on my plate. However, I'm not going to stop doing it now, because to produce a website compared to sending out a PDF, that is tremendous value to the conference attendees. What I'm doing if I actually have more time is I'm changing my content not just to what I presented at the conference, but to go a little bit deeper to give them some exercises in each chapter, so that I change my one conference session into a workshop. And that is even more value to conference attendees. I'm not going to stop doing that now, even though it has added a lot of work to my plate, because it has added so much value overall. And this is why I'm convinced that AI is not going to do us all out of jobs if you are awake and working with your AI and building stuff together. It's creating more work whilst at the same time accelerating your productivity, whilst at the same time making you be better than you ever were, as long as you are in it with them, not letting it do it alone. If you let it do it alone without you, you can absolutely be replaced by any kid off the street, because you don't need to have any skill to just click yes, yes, yes without reading it. But you do need to have skill if you are going to judge what is good and what is not good. Bring your own expertise to the table. Oh wait, am I like at?
Like 4 minutes.
I'm at 4 minutes out. Okay, then let's go a lot quicker. That's okay. That's okay, because a lot of this is the same kind of reminder, and I've told you all the stories. So really good, I think, for junior devs as well as senior devs. So for junior devs, you want to use it to accelerate where you are and to learn quicker. It is your coach, it is your teacher, it is your senior mentor. You can use it to accelerate where you're getting to, because you can ask it, explain it to me. If you still don't get it, explain it to me like I'm 5. If you still don't get it, explain it to me in a fun way, in a story tale about a fairy. You know, that kind of stuff. And it will never lose patience with you like a senior dev would. It can also it can also show you 5 different ways to solve the problem, but then it can explain each of those 5 different ways. So, you know, this way is a good way for a proof of concept. This way is enterprise code. You'd use this if you wanted to be coding Pythonically. This is the way that your organization generally codes, you know, and so you can learn really a lot by using it in ask mode and just asking, talking, sharing. Don't use it agentically if you're a junior dev, because what happens if you use it agentically is it will write code that you don't understand, that you can't explain, and you can't troubleshoot. And when things go wrong, you won't be able to talk your way out of it because you don't know what it did. So junior devs use it in ask mode, senior devs and architects use it in agentic mode. Let's skip this. You do need to have guardrails, so this is the other reason why I say code on GitHub, because we have governance, compliance, security, and privacy built in there. And especially if you're building it at an enterprise level, this is what is important to us. This is why I said, not to you guys, but someone I was talking to earlier, we are not innovators at Microsoft. This is why within GitHub Copilot, you can choose any model you like, not just the Microsoft models. You can choose OpenAI models. You can choose Anthropic models. You can choose, you could even choose Grok if you wanted to. I don't recommend that, but go wild. Whatever you want, Gemini, you can pick them all from there. But they are wrapped within that secure boundary that we have of GitHub. Always verify, remember you own it. Here's just quick misconceptions. Don't accept your suggestions blindly, otherwise you will become replaceable, because anyone can do that. The differentiator is you. And that's it, actually. So this is the end. This is the key. You can find all the slides on that website. And I do just want to leave you with that thought, that all of these coding assistants, they are the accelerants. They are not the thing that is meant to replace you. If you don't pay attention, they will, and you'll be kicked out. But if you do pay attention, if you keep being the human in the loop, then you can build trustworthy AI together with it at a lot faster pace and do a lot more with it. But yeah, stay in there, bring who you are to it, and don't be scared. It's all okay.